Blake is in Missouri. Hi, Blake. Welcome to the EntreLeadership podcast.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon.
Sure. How can I help?
So, a little background about me. I'm a full-time W-2 employee, and my wife and I own and operate a small business on the side, and we have no employees. We make handcrafted waterfowl decoys, and last year our gross revenue was $88,000. My question for you today is to see if you could go into detail about a group you were involved in. If I'm not mistaken, it was called the Eagles. I've recently had the desire to dive deeper into Scripture and would love to find a group of guys who also want to grow in their faith, while also growing their business and leadership skills. So I was curious if you had any wisdom to share on how to structure something similar.
Okay. Well, I mean, the principle behind it is, or behind having a group that you hang out with, is that everyone should always remember you become who you hang around with. Charlie Tremendous Jones used to say that 5 years from today, you'll be the same person you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. And so if you run around with people who are, whatever they are, positive or negative, you're going to find yourself, the more time you spend with them, mimicking their behavior. It's very hard for a human being not to do that. So once I deposited that piece of information into my brain, then I need to be intentional, which is what you're doing with this call, about who I'm hanging around with. Now, if you meet with a bunch of guys who are the best guys on the planet and do a Bible study for 1 hour a week, but you hang out with a bunch of deadbeats the rest of the time, you're still going to be a deadbeat. 1 hour a week isn't going to fix it, okay? Don't misunderstand. So it's the overall idea of I can be kind to people but not spend immense amounts of time with people that I don't want to be like, okay? So I don't want to run. I don't want to run with that group. I don't have to be snobbish or arrogant or anything towards them, but I just don't spend the majority of my time with that kind of a person because I'm going to become like them, and I don't want to be like that. So anyway, then once I knew that, the first thing I did was I joined a formal Bible study on leadership that was taught in our area. It was a 2-year program. We read, 40 books in 2 years, memorized a bunch of scriptures, and had a formal accountability system with guys that wanted to study biblical leadership. And it was a curriculum, okay? That may or may not be available in your area, something like that. But that's the first thing I did. Out of that group, I really started seeing the value of a structured, regular meeting with people I wanted to be like. Okay, because that first group was more of a learning, like I was going to class, but I was going to class with like-minded people and formed relationships with like-minded people during that time. So it scratched the itch initially. Then I came out of that, and I didn't have that weekly update with my guys because that ended. It was a 2-year curriculum, and so three of us that were in that group together said, hey, we're going to do this on purpose, but we're just going to make it up. And it doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's just going to be we're going to call it a Bible study, and we'll read some scripture, but we'll also probably read some great books. And that's when we formed the Eagles. And what we did there was, at that point in my life, I was already a teacher. I was already doing this. And so almost all of the meetings I was in or situations I was in around a table, I was the one there to give information. And I knew if I didn't get myself in a situation where I was filling rather than just pouring out, that I was going to have a problem. So I thought, I've got to get guys that are as successful or more successful than I am in their chosen field, okay, to where they're going to add stuff to the room without me being the only one adding to the room. You see what I'm saying? I didn't want to be the leader of the group. I wanted to be a member of the group. And so I just made a list of people that I knew and or knew of. Some of them I didn't have a close personal relationship. I just knew who they were. And I reached out to 12 guys that were amazing in their areas, and they were all people that I knew that had a walk with God because I'm a Christian, and that's why I wanted to be running around with that. And I was going to form a Bible study, so it'd be inconsistent to do that otherwise. So anyway, and I was honestly, Blake, some of these guys were like way beyond me in terms of success level, and I was a little intimidated by the whole process, and I was really surprised, pleasantly, that all of them came. Every single one of them said yes. Because I figured some of them would go, oh, no, I'm too busy, or you're just a goober, go away, or I figured somebody, and all of them came. And what I figured out, it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with this thing that we all, those of us that want to have growth, personal growth in our life, we all have this void. And when someone presents us an option to fill that void, we jump on it. And so, because guys just don't do this very well. Ladies do it better than guys do. This idea of I'm going to have a group, I'm going to have a posse, I'm going to have a gang, and not a bunch of parasites. I'm talking about people that add value to your life. And so they all came because the idea was good, not because it was, I get to be with Dave, because it really wasn't that at all. Truthfully, it wasn't. And so that group, we started reading. We would read about a book a month. And I read a whole bunch of books I would have never read in my life, so it was good in that, because there's some of that, it's awful. But they were theology books, and they were just horrible. But I ingested things into my brain and my spirit that I otherwise wouldn't have, because I put a structure in place. And we had some really good, healthy arguments in that room every Wednesday morning. And in those days, I did a Fox and Friends appearance at 6 a.m. every Wednesday morning by fiber. And so I would go in and do the Fox appearance, and then we walk across the hall to my conference room, and that's where we would meet. So it was very structured into my schedule as well. And so we did that for 14 years. And it was 3 pastors of large churches running mega operations and having operational issues and all the stuff that goes with running a big church, which is a dadgum circus. And, 2 or 3 authors in there, 2 or 3 people that were just business people that nobody even knew who they were hardly, except I knew their gross revs were outstanding. And so I just put eagles, because eagles don't naturally flock, turkeys do. And so that's why we called it the eagles. You have to gather eagles. They don't naturally flock. They don't come in flocks. And so I put the room full of rock stars, full of eagles. And that group, one of the guys passed away after 14 years, and it lasted about another year after that, and it had run its season. And so, and then I formed several different guys groups that are all at my behest, and aren't quite as formal as that. But those 2 or 3 things, I'm always going to have men, in my case, men in my life that are close to me. The 6 of them are going to carry my casket if I go before them. I'm going to have those guys right there with me, and they need to be, in my case, I've been married 43 years. All the guys in my group right now have been married one time, and all been married for 30 or 40 years. And it's not that I'm mad at you if you've been divorced. I just need guys around me that manage to pull this thing off, and that kind of stuff. So all of that's the whole thing. That's all I did. And then a couple of my guys that were in that group got divorced after long marriages. So that was weird, but we didn't throw them out. I mean, we just walked through with our brothers, walked through the pain they were going through. And so we're not lacking in grace. That wasn't the point. But, so we're looking for people of character. We're looking for people of shared values. We're looking for people that have competency at levels we don't even have, because I'm going to become who I hang around with. And that was the idea. Today in EntreLeadership, we've got advisory groups for those of you that are plugged into that, and it's somewhat modeled after that, in that what we do is we put together businesses that are of like mind or like geography or like industry, and they're solving the same problems at the same time. And so you've got a group of people with shared experiences, and a coach is watching over that in the process there. So the advisory groups are very, very effective for accountability, for encouragement, for teaching, in the same sense that the Eagles group was. And so we've got that. If you want to plug into it, the EntreLeadership system, it's real easy. You go, okay, you're at the treadmill stage, and here's what you need to be doing. And we're going to talk you through every bit of that, and that's how this whole process works. So you can form your own, but you just have an idea of what it is you're wanting to accomplish with the group. The first group was about teaching. The second group was about personal growth and fellowship and accountability with people at the same level or higher than me. The third groups are more informal, and they're more about social gatherings and just friendship and being there for each other. But still, you're going to become who you hang around with. So just choose carefully who you're spending time with, because that's how it's going to work out. That's how it goes. Blake, you're a smart man for asking that question. I'm honored that you thought I would know the answer. I don't know that I know the answer. I know my answer. That's what I did, and it worked really, really well. I'm really sure that Ramsey's partly where it is right now because of that whole concept right there. This is the EntreLeadership Podcast.